So may I say, the most dangerous person for Africa today is a colonized African. And we must challenge each and every one of us to have a serious conversation with the image in the mirror. Are you colonized? Where do you stand when it comes to the issues to do with Africa? How do you feel about the continued exploitation of Africa?
Welcome again to another episode of the WSXM podcast, to where a united Africa is an undisputed Africa. So, the new foundation, the new Africa Foundation had to keep a conference in Accra, in Ghana, and they invited three Pan-Africanists, lecturers, educators, the former ambassador for the African Union, which is Miss Chikumbori, Professor Lumumba, again, a former lawyer, now a Pan-Africanist, and an educator, and he's brilliant when it comes to African issues and conflicts and everything. And then the Nigerian speaker, Obia, he's a politician and a businessman as well. And because of the cancellation of as current to what we are hearing, the Ghana government cancelled the convention by closing off, putting soldiers and police to close off the convention so they can't enter. And there was thousands of young African men and women from all different countries on the continent, and also some of them who's not from Africa also went to get this lecture. It would be a great speech. But anyway, the three speakers keep a press conference. Professor Lumumba, as I earlier mentioned, and listen to what I'm gonna do. Play each one a part of each speaker, and then we're gonna discuss it, and then we're gonna see the reason why they're trying to close these guys down and for them to not to be heard. Let's take a listen first to Miss Chikumbori and what she's saying, and then we discuss it after. Boom.
And I need you guys to pay attention to what I'm getting ready to say. You raised a very important issue that you said, being literate or illiterate. But I'll tell you, our issues as Africans today are issues of the mind. The most dangerous African of today is an African who is colonized, educated or not. Coming from Zimbabwe, I can honestly tell you that the people who are moving Zimbabwe in terms of the awakening are the villagers. They seem to have a better understanding of what is really going on and are less likely to be sold, are less likely to sell their souls. And you must look at the people around you. Some of the most difficult people, I was called by the Africa group at the World Bank one time to address them for their annual event. And I went through all the issues and the pillars of why Africa is where Africa is, and I analyzed the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization that the 14 African former French colonies were made to sign. I thought everybody understood. But at the end of it, two African-born economists working for the World Bank come to me and said, "But Ambassador, why do you keep talking about the Berlin Conference? It's a thing of the past." And to my utter shock, I'd gone through the process of explaining the Berlin Conference and that it is a policy that was put in place in order to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. And that as long as we have a country called Togo, as long as we have a country called Burkina Faso, as long as we have a country called Malawi, we are defeated. Intentionally so. So these two economists working for the World Bank are the same ones now that are being used as instruments of our own self-destruction. They're the ones that are being sent to Africa to sell policies that are detrimental to Africa's progress. So the question then becomes, what is our education doing for us? And it goes back to the miseducation. The people who are in power are the ones who are failing to stand up and challenge those who are raping us in broad daylight. Pardon my choice of words. I was once asked by one African, Ambassador, let's try to be nice to these Westerners. Let's not be too direct as we challenge them. And I did ask this brother of mine, I said, my brother, help me out. How do I tell a man who is raping me to rape me nicely? I said, help me with the language. And this was an educated professor who is advising me to be nice. How long am I going to continue to be nice? Those are the educated people who are sitting in the boardrooms and they choose to be mute. And when they are mute, while representing us, that means 1.4 billion Africans are mute. It is not the villager who is sitting at the boardroom table. It is the elite, the educated. So my son, what is our education doing to us? What have we done to undo the colonial education? I hear right here in Ghana, perfect example. There's not a single Kwame Nkrumah book that is required reading in the Ghanaian educational system. Whose problem is that? Most African countries, our educational system is still the colonial educational system. So what do you expect from the leaders that we have today if their education remains colonized? So may I say, the most dangerous person for Africa today is a colonized African. And we must challenge each and every one of us to have a serious conversation with the image in the mirror. Are you colonized? Where do you stand when it comes to the issues to do with Africa? How do you feel about the continued exploitation of Africa? How do you feel about neocolonization, imperialism? Do you even understand it? Do you even know what the Berlin Conference means when it comes to your ability to buy bread, to your ability to get a job? Can you connect the dots back to the policies that are designed to keep us where they want us to be? It is the elite, it is the educated who are refusing to challenge the status quo and speak on our behalf, educated or not.
So guys, that's Chikumbosi. And I'm telling you, this is what we need to teach in our schools, and we need to have lectures like this, people like this to come and give lectures in our schools to open the minds of a lot of our colonized brothers and sisters. Because as she said, the most dangerous African is a colonized mind African. Not, and I will take it a step further and say the most dangerous person to the Pan African struggle is a colonized black person a black person with a colonized mindset, and they are set in it. That's why I like Dr. Umar Johnson. I don't agree with everything he says, but with majority of what he says, I do agree with. And we need to get rid of this colonized school curriculum that they are teaching to black kids. That's why black kids are failing at a high rate, because they're not teaching us anything that to help us in the future, especially when it comes on to our history. They rebrand it, rewrite it, and then give it to us and hide all of the great things black people did in the past, and all the things we invented. They take it, rebrand it, and give it to us. Because if you ask some black people right now if Egypt is an African country, they will tell you no. And if you ask them about if we had black kings in black pharaohs, they're gonna say no. Because what? the movie industry rewrite and rebrand and reshuffle all of our history. Some of our history is totally wiped out, books burned, tribes wiped off the face of the earth, and they hide these things from us, but there are still drawings and tablets that have these our history still embedded in it, and we still have some of those generations that came down and they pass on the knowledge to the generation, and that's how we get to know our history. So, and another thing, the Berlin Conference. If you ask the typical black person today, what is the Berlin Conference? They can tell you. And the Berlin Conference was a major blow to Africa because that's when all the European countries came together, divided up Africa, and made these African countries sign the ACCA. They had no choice in the matter. They had no input. They could not refuse it. All they had to do is sign and the dotted lines. That's when Africa was heavily colonized, and we need to get away from that mindset. And you can have an idea of why the Ghanaian government. And I'm gonna let's wait and see who actually stopped this conference. But if the army and the police officers came out to cordon off the entire convention center and not allow people to enter, that means the only person who have the power to deploy troops on the ground has to come from high up, which is the president, which is President Nana Akufo. And um, the former president Kwame, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was the first African president to talk about a united Africa. He came with the whole concept of having African Union, the united Africa, where they can come together and to be independent. So that's the only way Africa will strive, by Africa coming together. As an example, look at Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. It's all young people who was involved in that coup and that fight. The president is 35 years old in Burkina Faso. In Niger, same thing. Yeah, none of them is a little bit older, but they are all young people, and you see the big changes that's going on in Burkina Faso. He's changing the curriculum from the colonizers' curriculum to African curriculum. Sorry, curriculum. Anyway, let's get move on. I'm getting a tight on there. Well, he's changing the curriculum. He's changing it the curriculum. He's changing the curriculum from the westernized one to an African one. He's also changing the language. They're no longer using the French language. It's passed in Parliament, and they're going to stick to the local language. But let's now listen to Professor Lumumba and his take on this, why the convention was closed.
My good sister, Dr. Arikana, has spoken for me, and I believe for all of us. We came here to Accra, Ghana, to share our message. It's the message of hope. It's the message that Africa needs at this time. And there is no better place in the continent of Africa to begin that message than Accra, Ghana. It is in this Accra, Ghana that the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah, almost 67 years ago, spoke to the world and told the world that the independence of Ghana meant nothing if the continent of Africa was not free. 67 years later, we were congregating here in Accra, in the very same place where the founding fathers and mothers of Ghana congregated to share the message of hope. Invited as we were by the New Africa Foundation, with one single instruction that we have lamented for too long, agonized for too long, and the time is now to organize. That is the innocent message that we came here to deliver. And in a manner totally inexplicable to us, we are not at that venue. But is it not the wise to say, when the world serves you a lemon, ask not for an orange, make yourself lemonade? We are here, therefore, to say that the message will be alive and well. And you who are here, young and old, you are the conduit via which we are now telling the world that the journey of hope continues apace, not only within the continent of Africa, which is the mother continent, but to Africans in the diaspora. I have no doubt in my mind that there is a conspiracy of sorts by the elements that it should happen the way it has happened. So this is not an occasion for lamentation. It is an occasion for redoubling our efforts. And our presence here in Accra, Ghana, my good friend, Honorable Obi, my dear sister, Dr. Rikana Chihombri Kwao, this is the occasion for which the English word serendipity was created. It is a serendipitous occasion that heralds a great future for the continent of Africa. So that looking forward, a meeting such as this will happen not only here in Accra, Ghana, but I look forward to a meeting such as this taking place in Ouagadougou, in Burkina, taking place in Dakar, in Senegal, in Nairobi, in Kenya, in Johannesburg, in South Africa, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, because this is about the continent of Africa. And we say this at a time when we know that Africa has promised to herself that we are going to make more intimate our interaction. This is why the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is headquartered here in Accra, Ghana. This Accra, Ghana is where all Africans of goodwill pay homage. Because out of this Accra, Ghana, there was a great son, the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah. Shall be well with Accra, Ghana.
So that's Professor Lumumba. Again, another brilliant speaker. Someone that can open your mind, give you knowledge, and make you feel proud to be an African, African descent. Because that's one of the things that aches me when someone say, "Oh, I'm not African. I'm from here. I'm from there." We're the only race that rejects our heritage. Anyway, let's go to what he was saying. And serendipity, I had to look it up, honestly, and then serendipitous, which is the adjective. Serendipity is a noun, serendipitous is the adjective. It's like something happened unexpectedly good to you, something unexpected happened, um, like at the right time. That's basically what it means. Like, for instance, you're walking down the street and you just put up on a good friend, and then at the same time you find $100. Serendipitous. It's like something great happening at a moment that's unexpected. Anyway, let's move on. So what he's saying, this is President Kagame, the first president that I speak earlier that from Ghana, from actually Ghana, 67 years back, what he said, which is Kagame. That's a picture of him right here. He was the first one that said a free Africa, a united Africa has to be independent, and also has to be, the entire country has to be free to be fight to unite. You cannot have 4 or 5 countries united and then the rest don't. Then Africa will always catch hell. Will always have issues. Will always have problems. But this is what I think the government is running from. They don't want the youth's minds to open up and to rise up, because the minute that happen, they know there's going to be a change in the atmosphere. So, for instance, if President Nana Akufo is a puppet of the West, or he's not a fully puppet, but he's doing things that's not good for his country, if these youths come to a conference like this and their minds are open, do you know they can the havoc they can reap and the government, as in the sense that not a violent thing I'm talking about, like in the next election they can take out, like literally vote out all who is inside, because their minds are not open, their minds are not free, they can think independently, and that's what they are afraid of. They're afraid of the younger generation rise up, because Africa has 110 billion young people that's under 20, 20. I know, under 25. 101 billion, and the continent has 104 billion. So you can imagine the amount of young people on the continent, one of the youngest growing continent on the planet. And President Lumumba is so 100% correct. Why they are barring this is not stopping the fight. It's gonna just motivate them to go on more. But let's listen to the last speaker that they invited, and they give us this person, and then we can discuss it after.
Like previous speakers have said, we might not be at the convention, but that will not stop the conversation. We only shifted venue, so the conversation continues. We're in Ghana to start the conversation about Africa. Africa for too long has suffered, and everybody knows the reason why Africa has suffered. People can try to present it in different stages. The Prof speaks about it every day. Africa has been going through what it's going through because of what I always say, that it is due to one problem: leadership. It is failed leadership over the years that brought Africa where it is. I want to start a conversation because of what Dr. Arikana has said, talking to the youth of Africa. No continent in the world today have the potential of Africa. Not one. We are the second largest in terms of population and size, but our potential is far greater than even number one, because today Africa is the only continent that have a population of 1.1 billion youths, energetic, talented, ready to leave the world in different areas of the world. Africa is home to the biggest, highest amount of natural resources, from minerals to, we have 65% today of the world all cultivated arable land. So imagine what we can do. We can feed the world. We can do everything. But ironically, because of what I started with, failed leadership over the years, Africa is also home to the highest number of poor people. Out of the 700 million people in extreme poverty today, 431 million live in Africa. Over 30% of our population. If you go to multidimensional poverty, out of 1.1 billion, over 60% is in Africa, with Congo and Nigeria leading. Today, in the surface of the world, Congo has the highest amount of natural, call it minerals, over 24 trillion. Nigeria has similar situation. You can extrapolate Congo situation to all over Africa, where they have everything, but they are producing poverty. It cannot continue with our youth. With the energy they have, they can lead the world in technology, in health, in entertainment, in everything. All they want is leadership, purposeful leadership. Africa has what is, look at its wealth, resources, shamelessly stolen and put in private pockets. It cannot continue. So we're just here to continue conversations. It's not about any country, anything, but talking to the youth of Africa to know that they can change the world. They can change the way things are in Africa. Africa should not be a continent where people come to beg or plead for aid. We should be contributing to aid of other people with the resources we have. And that's what Africa should be. Their own Africa should be. That's all the conversation is all about. It's about the future of Africa. Thank you.
As the final speaker, Obi, he's a Nigerian politician. Anyway, so he just said the same thing I said earlier about the population, the 1.1 billion young people. Anyway, that's for sure. It's a fact. We have the youngest population in the world, and what he's saying, especially about the Congo and Nigeria. But let's talk about the Congo for 1 minute. The Congo is plagued with insurgents, right? And that has to do with the colonizers funding these groups to destabilize the country, and also a lot of corruption. But put away the colonizers. I cannot solely blame the colonizers for what's going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Democratic Republic of Congo is one of the richest country in the world. It has every single mineral that every single country in the world needs. Name the country, they need the minerals from the Congo, from the whole nine, the whole shebang. I'll put it on the screen. So, how is it the Congo has the poorest people and in the world, leading at such a high rate? But this has nothing to do with. Well, it has part of it is colonizers, but this also has to do with bad leadership and greed. Let me say greed, because there's no way you can be the richest country in the world, but yet have the poorest people in the world. This has to do with these presidents are lining their pockets and their friends' pockets, because there's no way you can find any excuse for not having um the Congo should be just like Saudi Arabia, one of the richest country in the world, which means it is the richest country in the world, but mean it should be like Saudi Arabia, where the majority of the citizens are well off. It's just like Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia is one of the oil giants, so that's the main export. But the Congo has cobalt, they have iron, gold, they have gold, they have diamond, they have cobalt, the thing they use for the phone. What's the name of it? I can't remember it right now. But anyway, they should be one of the citizens should be well off than any of the African countries, and that again has to do with greed. So we cannot blame white people for this part, for the state the Congo is. We can to a level. Look at what happened in Burkina Faso. The president of Burkina Faso, the 35-year-old young president, stopped every single export of all resources: the gold, the uranium, diamond, all the resources they have there. It was stopped, and they have to pay fair value for and Niger as well. And now Niger is one of the fastest growing economy on the country on the continent. Niger is the fastest growing economy on the continent. Why? Because what? They cut everybody off. So why is it the Congo can do the same thing? Why they cannot the president of the Congo, who just got reelected, and instead of focusing on his country and his citizens, he's talking about starting a war with Rwanda. He want to go to war. He want to invade Rwanda. What does that have to do with paying attention to you? Clean up the corruption in the Congo and focus on the citizens and focus on building a country instead of focusing on fighting the next African country. Why they have Europeans reaping and raking the Congo for every single resources they have. Over $24 trillion of resources they have underground in the Congo. And they can't tap into that. These presidents, these older presidents, need to be put out of power because they don't care about the citizens. They all they care about is becoming rich, becoming millionaires, enriching their friends, and cozying up to the Europeans. And that's what Miss Chikumbori said. Okay, that's what she said. She said a colonized African is one of the worst when it comes on to the Pan-Africanists. They don't care about their citizens. They care about cozying up to the whites. They care about don't treat them nicely. Don't talk to them too rough. And that's what she said. You cannot want me to expect to keep on talking to these people as if they haven't done a major service to the continent. And not only that, listen on what she also said. The elites are the ones who are doing this. The educated and the elites are the ones who are sitting on this board, the World Bank, and they're the one of the cozying up the colonized mind, are cozying up to the colonizers to help destabilize their own continent. It blows my mind. And Nigeria is the same thing. Nigeria is doing the same thing. Nigerian citizens are economy is dropping because what they are following the French and the Americans and they're sanctioning Burkina Faso, Niger, and other African countries, and it's hurting them more than how it's hurting the sanctioned countries. Burkina Niger, they sanctioned Niger, but Niger is still has one of the fastest growing economy, while the economy is in shambles. Nigeria, Senegal, Benin, they sanction heavily on Niger, and look at what's happening to them. So anyway, Um, let me know what you think about this press conference that was kept because of the cancellation of the convention to give the lecture, and I will put the link um for the full for the full press conference in the description, so you can go and watch the entire thing. It's like an hour and 20 minutes. So you can get to watch it. This is just a kind of compress it, so you can don't have to watch the whole thing if you don't need it. But if you need it, it will also be in the discussion. Thanks for watching. As always, tell a friend, like, comment, share, subscribe. Boom.